What's up guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Angoya, and in today's video we're going to talk about the US student visa interview tips. When I was preparing for this video, I thought about all the requests that I've gotten over the years, all the questions that I've been asked over the years, and I also went back over almost 9 years ago when I was applying for the student visa and the process of interviewing, and just thought about like what were the things that I really wanted to know back then that I would have appreciated if somebody shared those in a video. So for those who are not familiar with the process, once you apply to schools in the US and you have your funding in order, you have everything figured out, the school will send you an I-20 plus your admission and everything that you need to apply for your US visa. And you apply for the F-1 visa, which is the student visa, and you schedule an interview, and then you go in for an interview, and it could be, you know, a 2-minute interview. I think for me, I went for this interview twice, and I think they both lasted maybe a total of 5 minutes. So it's not a long interview, it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I don't know if anyone goes over 10-20 minutes, but it's just an interview that you go and you talk to an officer at the US embassy in your local country, and then they approve your visa, and then you get your visa and your passport, and you come to the school in the United States. To start off the video, timing is key. By that I mean that you need to have enough time between the time that you apply for your visa and the time that you get your visa, so that you have enough time to go to school on time, like when the semester starts. And for international students, a lot of schools would require you to go a week or two earlier before the traditional students, and that's because they want to have an international student orientation, because they understand that you are coming from a whole different country. They want to orient you so that you are familiar with the environment before starting school. So to give you an example, I got my I-20 at the end of July, yet my school was starting on August 8th. And so by the time I could apply for the visa and also schedule my visa interview, it was already past my start date. So when I finally got a slot to go to the interview, I was asked to go back and ask my school and to write me a letter and let the embassy know if they would still let me go to school if the embassy were to give me a visa. And that of course took a day or two, and then I would basically have to start the process of trying to schedule another interview, and then going for the interview, and then getting my visa. By the time I got to school, it was like 3 weeks later. So I encourage everybody that as soon as you have your admission decision, start working on your I-20 and process your visa. You can have your visa even 2-3 months before your start date. As long as you have it and you're set, you should be good. So the next thing revolves around how you should be thinking about the interview itself, and what is going on in the mind of the officer. So your job when you go to the interview is to prove to the officer that you are nothing but a genuine student, because their job is to try and figure out who is not a genuine student. They are trying to figure out if you have other reasons of coming to the United States. They're trying to figure out if you are somebody who is trying to just immigrate to the United States in the name of being a student. They're trying to figure out, like, if this person goes to the United States, can they come back, or are they going to be a burden to the country? And you need to be ready to answer any question that revolves around your education. So for example, if they ask you about, like, what are you going to study? A genuine student will know what they're going to study. They will know why they're going to study in the United States, why they chose that major and things like that. So if they ask you a question about, like, why do you want to study this course in this country, and you have no answer, or what are you going to study, and you don't even know what you're coming to study, like, that just is a red flag in itself. For me, the officer asked me what state my school was in and what city my school was in. if you are a genuine student, you probably spend so much time in effort writing the address down, writing the school name and address, and like maybe checking out the city that the school is in. So that is not a question that you can't answer. But if you're somebody who probably, you know, maybe your relative applied for you and all you did was just wait to go to the embassy, then you might not be able to answer that question. So simple things like that can prove that you are actually a student who knows what they're coming to do, and they set you apart, and it's easy to get you a visa that way. The next tip is the most challenging and the most, I think, also important part of the visa application process and the visa interview, and that is funding. They will look into the funding. They will look into how much the school is giving you, how much you said is coming from somewhere else, and what that other source is. So when you walk into the interview, you have to know where your funding is coming from, and you have to be able to explain that funding. So if you got a full scholarship for, you know, from your school, it's easy because you just go there and they see that you have 100% funding from your school. They probably won't ask you, and even if they do, it's easy, you know. But if you are self-funded, or if somebody else is funding you, it becomes really challenging because you have to explain and you have to show documentation for that. So for people that are self-funding, you have to show where this money is coming from. You have to show your bank statement, and you have to show that this money has been there and you've always been in this financial situation and you're able to fund this education. So the other red flag on bank statements would be things like you have a bank statement and it's probably not your family or relative, but you've gone to the embassy and you can't even explain that. You can't prove that this person is truly willing and able to help you. So if you get a bank statement from, let's say, I don't know, a politician or somebody who's said that they'll be able to fund your education, I think you should take an extra step and ask, would you be able to write me a letter to so that when I go to the embassy I can show them that this is your bank statement, yes, and this is a letter from you saying that you have accepted to fund me. So make sure you bring something to show that this is a legitimate person, and we've talked, we have some sort of conversation and agreement, and this is what they have said that they're going to do, and I can trust that they're going to do that. So funding is very, very important when it comes to the visa interview and just really you getting your visa. You have to show your sources of finances and you have to prove that they are legitimate sources. So from my experience, I think confidence goes a long way. When you go to the US Embassy, and I've only been to the US Embassy in Kenya, the security and the processes and the way people talk to you, it feels like everybody is questioning your motive for being there, and people ask you questions and you respond, but they need to see documentation for everything that you're saying, and that can start like affecting you mentally because you start feeling like, oh, maybe you forgot something. You start feeling like maybe something is wrong, you're not sure of why you're there, you start losing your confidence. But I encourage people to tap into what it is that gives them confidence. If it's prayers, if it's just, you know, going quiet and just focusing on what is ahead of you, or even if it means thinking about your education and why you really want to get this education, think about that and focus on that, because all these other external things can start making you feel less confident and you might start feeling like you don't belong there. And I think when you go to the interview, you kind of want to prove to the officer that you're somebody who is capable of boarding a plane by probably themselves and maneuvering all these international airports and landing into a whole new country, figuring out your way to school, and, you know, getting your education. Because if there's one thing that I tell people is that when you first come to the United States, I don't know, but you will always feel out of place. I constantly felt out of place because most times you don't know what people are talking about, or you don't understand what they're talking about. The culture is different, the food is different, the teaching methods are just completely different. You probably look different, because that's the first time that I've personally felt like I am different. Like, I had never felt like, you know, I stand out in a crowd as much as I felt when I got here. So that means that you have to have a lot of confidence, or I don't know what it is. You need to like tap into something within you to keep you going, because you can easily like lose yourself and lose your confidence. So I would encourage you to really start thinking about who you are, reminding yourself of how great you are, reminding yourself of the things that you're capable of doing at the embassy and during the interview, so that when you are now put in this environment where you constantly question yourself and it's very vivid that you're different, you can actually sit in this and say, yeah, I'm different, I sound different, I don't know what you guys are talking about half of the time or 100% of the time, but I'm here and I belong here just as much as you belong here. You have to practice that. You have to practice reminding yourself of who you are. So the last thing is, what is your plan after graduation? So the point of an F-1 visa is for you to come, get your education and get out, and that has to be your plan. Even if it's not your real plan, at the interview, that is your plan. Your plan is that you're coming here for the duration of the visa that you're given, and once you're done with that, you will not violate your visa. You will go back to your home country. You cannot be planning to immigrate here. You cannot be planning to stay here in terms of, oh, I want to stay and work in America and, you know, get my citizenship. That is not necessary at the point of the interview. That could be your real plan, but when you're applying for a student visa, you go there with the aim of getting a student visa, getting your education and coming out and moving back to your home country. So think about that, and when you go to the interview, make sure that that is what you relay to the officer. Not your real plan, not your other dreams. Your student visa status is what you need to prove to them that you will not violate that status. So if you're like me and you've gotten lots and lots of questions about tips on acing the interview, please take this video and share with those people so that they stop asking. And if you know anyone who is going to be applying or is starting the process, feel free to share this video with them. I'm sure it will help them and they can actually start thinking about that process. When the time comes, they will already be in that mindset. See you next week.